Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Bikes for Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I am your host. And on today's episode, I am speaking with Angus Morton, who is the filmmaker behind the new film titled The Divide that features Lachlan Morton on his recent unofficial record-setting run of the Tour Divide. Lachlan ended up completing the Tour Divide in 12 and a half days, which is the fastest known time, but it is not an official time as he had a film crew who was following his attempt. I absolutely loved this film. As soon as I finished watching it, I immediately reached out to Angus to see if he'd be down to chat about it. And we had a fantastic conversation surrounding the making of this film, Lachlan's journey. And we do touch on the hot button topic of media coverage in bikepack racing. I really enjoyed this film, and I really enjoyed my conversation surrounding this film with Angus, and I hope that you enjoy it as well. But before we get into it, let's take a moment to thank the people that made today's episode possible, starting with our latest patrons. So first off, we'd like to thank Matthew Crouch, Whitney Hauk, and Catherine Groves for signing up to be sustaining members of the Bikes for Death podcast. That brings our total to 312 patrons, and we truly appreciate each and every one of you, as we can't produce these episodes without your support. And if you would like to find out more about how you can support this podcast, you can do so over at patreon.com/Bikes for Death. And today's episode is also brought to us by the Discover Israel race. This is a bikepacking race that, as the name indicates, takes place in Israel. It's on April 4th, and it's 11,008 kilometers long, or 688 miles. And they have a couple category options, whether you're looking to do the full race or the half race. You can also sign up solo or as a team. So if you're interested in this event, you can experience the awe-inspiring beauty of Israel like never before as you embark on the thrilling adventure of the Discover Israel race. This extraordinary bike event invites you to traverse the diverse landscape and terrains that make Israel a unique gem, all while soaking in the mesmerizing views that unfold before you. Picture yourself conquering the exhilarating no man's land of the desert, a place where untamed beauty meets rugged excitement. Feel the rush as you navigate through lush green forest in the north, each turn revealing a new facet of Israel's natural wonders. The Discover Israel race is a one-of-a-kind experience tailored to cater to all adventure enthusiasts. Whether you opt for the half race or go all in for the full challenge, choose to embark on this journey solo or form pairs with fellow thrill seekers. This race promises an adventure of a lifetime that caters to every level of explorer. So don't miss the chance to etch this unforgettable experience into your memory. Sign up today and kickstart your journey into the heart of Israel's breathtaking landscapes. Your next adventure awaits. For more information and registration details, please check out the show notes and then go ride your damn bike in Israel. Our next advertising partner today comes from Panorama Cycles. Panorama is a company that I've been working with for a little over a year now. I currently have their carbon gravel bike, which is the Kata Den. And after a year and many, many trips, I can absolutely tell you that this is a phenomenal bike that is a blast to ride. And I just ordered their newest offering, the Torngat Tie, which is truly in a category of its own, as it's been designed to run anywhere from a 29 by 2.5 inch tire all the way up to a 27.5 by 4.5 inch tire. I am super excited to get my hands on that one, and I can't wait to tell you more about it once I put a few miles on it. I'll be sharing more about all of the offerings from Panorama in upcoming episodes, But today I wanted to share with you some of the reasons why I chose Panorama. Panorama Cycles is an independent bicycle company that is based in Canada and is dedicated to the backcountry cyclist, those who prefer gravel, snow, and off-road trails. All of their bikes are designed with the intent to get you out on your own adventure. They are built with versatility in mind. In a cycling culture that often promotes N+1 as the correct number of bikes, Panorama rejects this model and instead designs each of their bikes with geometry, components, and features to make each model as versatile as possible. One of my favorite things about this company is that they are leading the industry in sustainably built bicycles. They do this through purchasing carbon credits from Carbon Zero to offset their CO2 emissions from all of their business activities. Additionally, they send any of their unusable composite products to C7 Composites, which is a company that has developed a process to transform obsolete carbon parts into polymer additives, which can then be used in various applications, giving new life to what was once considered waste. Not only are they building thoughtfully designed bicycles, they're doing so in a sustainable way, which is something as outdoors people I think we can all appreciate and get behind. So to find out more about their bikes and their sustainable practices, go to panoramacycles.com. And if you're thinking about purchasing one of their great bikes, please consider using our affiliate link, which can be found in the show notes of this episode or over at bikesfordeath.com. I'd also like to mention that I am the U.S. sales rep for Panorama. So if you're a bike shop that would like to hear more about these great bikes and this amazing company, I have got some truly amazing offers just for you, and I'd love to tell you all about it. So if you're interested, shoot me an email to bikes@bikesfordeath.com. and let's have a chat. All right, everybody, that's it. The bills have been paid. Thank you so much for being here. Now it is time to get to my chat with Angus Morton. But first, let's have my friend Miles Arbor kick it off with the Bikes for Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes for death. Bikes for death. Podcast.
Hello, now talk.
All right.
There we go.
Technology.
Dude, it was trying to output it through this fucking red ass mic I've got. I don't have an external recorder. Well, I do, but it won't. The power thing's broken on it. So I just plugged in this ridiculous mic.
I like it.
It glows red.
Yeah, it makes a statement.
It
glows red. It's not
Dude,
red.
It's like that's a light.
Oh, I fucking like that. You're showing me up.
The HyperX.
Oh, fuck, man. HyperX.
I don't even know how I got this. But, dude, I have it.
That's awesome.
I think it's like a gaming mic.
It looks like a gaming mic. It looks like it should come with one of those consoles that completely lights up and you shut yourself in a dark room for days on end, probably wearing a diaper so you never have to leave the computer screen. Is this your alter ego? Is this what we need to know about you?
Dude, I wish I had like a quirk like that, but no, I don't.
It'd be funny because
it would be.
It would be funny. My last guest on the podcast was Sophie On, and coincidentally, the first topic we discussed was his gaming.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know if you listened to that one. So it would have been pretty funny if we started this one off with some gaming talk as well.
Dude, yeah. No, I mean the last video game that I really got into was probably Metal Gear Solid, like the original Metal Gear Solid. which is
I've
going to be
never
like
played it. Is it like a
20.
first-person shooter?
Yeah, it's like exactly, and you sort of got to solve the kind of storyline, I guess. But it was, that's probably over 2 decades ago now. Jesus.
They can be addictive. It's something I've kind of intentionally not pursued because I have an addictive personality, and I used to play Call of Duty with some friends, and it can really like take over your life. And so I kind of intentionally avoid the games. My kids have a Nintendo Switch. And I do like to play Need for Speed with them sometimes. That's a good time.
I'm a big fan of Need for Speed, but I guess like editing's kind of like gaming in a sense.
Oh, fuck that!
That means like it's because you do. I just get obsessed, and I'll just be attached like to the computer for like weeks, and it's just you're sort of gamifying like an experience in a way. And you're trying to like win the puzzle, or like complete the puzzle but it's even more than that, I guess, because it's not just completing it, but it's completing it in the like most beautiful way or the most effective way.
Right.
So it's sort of the same thing. I feel like I could see how I would also get addicted to gaming because you just lock in.
Yeah. The difference is whenever you finish editing a project, you have something that you created to show for
sure.
it.
Yeah.
So there's like an extra bonus there where you can like showcase it to the world. It makes me wonder. It makes me wonder how much of your day-to-day life are you in the editing bay on a day-to-day basis?
That really depends, honestly. Everything that I work on is, well, basically everything that I work on, I'll see from like creation of the project or like the concept all the way through the edit. And so, I'll be involved. If I'm not the main editor, I'm always involved in the edit at some point from a hands-on point of view. And so, that really depends. Maybe like 60% of my time, quite a lot of time, like if I'm not shooting, then I'm in post, and that's usually, that usually runs straight, like one project runs into the other, or has been. So it's sort of like 60 or so percent, maybe 70% in the edit, and then the other 30 out there shooting.
I struggle. I was surprised to hear you say that because, man, editing is like, I loathe it at this point, 5 years into editing a podcast. But what I'm thinking is maybe a part of it is you're not editing yourself the whole time. I know you used to do a podcast, and maybe you still will pick that up, but something about editing yourself all the time, you're either show prepping and getting ready and then talking for hours, and then the editing process, you're just listening to yourself over and over and over again, and it's
I
dreadful.
remember cutting the first thereabouts a decade ago now, and that was my first experience of editing myself on screen, and that was like very challenging. It was such a strange experience. And then I did the same, and I was like, that's kind of why I didn't want to, really feature in anything or be on camera. Was because you just look at yourself and you're like, I'm an idiot, the whole time. But at some point, for me at least, I just like got past that bit, and I could be somewhat objective about myself on screen. If not slightly more harsh, but I wasn't like I was when I first watched it. I was like, this, I'm an idiot. Like, why would anyone want to watch that? You just feel like such a fool. At least I did. So there is an element of not, I guess, because you're not doing yourself. But I kind of am at a point now where it's just I'm pretty good at just being like, it's characters on screen. Even when it's Lockie, I'm not watching him and being like, how can I make him look the best or sort of come across in the nicest way? It's always like, for me, it's always like, what's going to serve the story best? What's the most? And sometimes that's, I'll often get to the end of something and I'm like, wait, have I made this, my brother, this person that I love, have I made them look like an asshole, or like, are they an asshole? And, sort of like sometimes you have this moment of fear where you're like, wait, I just sent out a version of this for them to review. And I'm like, have I even considered what they're going to think about how they come across in this? And so when I feel that way, I kind of like, well, I've done my job the right way, as opposed to.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate that. And something I try to tell myself as, we're all human. And anytime I'm being critical of myself or, the product I'm producing, it doesn't take me long to, listen to another podcast and hear all the times that like they didn't finish their line of thought or they start something and then they derail themselves or they cut somebody off. And, it kind of, it's like, it just put it in perspective. We're all human. And that is one of the things that attracted me to this particular medium is how it showcases the humanity of people. And we all are idiots sometimes, and we all say dumb things sometimes, and we don't always have the perfect, one-liner right at the tip of our tongue, and so, I try to give myself permission, and I've gotten better at it as I've gone along, but it can be a little grueling to listen to all your mistakes time and time again, or the things you wish you would have said better or differently, or the question you wish you would have asked.
Yeah, well, I think that's interesting you say that because, as human beings, we think in like in an arc, in a complete sort of contained thought or, idea or concept. And that's how we remember things. That's why we're attracted so well to story. And when we tell stories in a podcast or on screen, there's sort of somewhat of a structure in that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And at the end of the story, there's some sort of resolution, but we don't actually talk in that way. And our daily lives don't actually go in that way. It's just the way that we think about them. So when we're listening to a podcast, like, unless you're really listening to see if someone completes a thought or completes a sentence, like, we're doing it for them, in our mind, we're like closing that loop.
Right.
So I do the same thing. I'm so competitive. And then I'll watch other films incessantly and trying to figure out techniques or see what other people have done. And I'm always like watching and I'm like, damn, like they did that. They completed that so much more nicely than I did or would have. And you watch it once and that's the feeling. And then you watch it again and then you start to see, and then you watch it a third time and you start to see like, all right, I get it. I can see it now. Like I can see where edits were made or where things that I, in the first watch sort of seem so much more complete, maybe aren't as necessarily complete. So I think we just sort of do that as human beings.
Right. And it's good. It's good to zoom out and have perspective. And I think the way you put that and that perspective is a perfect way to look at it. Well, from my perspective as a member of the community and a person who just absolutely enjoyed your film. At this stage, there's quite a lot of media that comes out as it relates to bikepack racing. And I really feel like your film, The Divide, captured that race and Lachlan's experience just fantastically. The cinematography was incredible. The juxtaposition of his cell phone cameras, the wide shots with the music, that matched the scenery just perfectly. I feel like as a viewer, I felt like it really conveyed kind of the solitude, the grueling journey that he went on. And so I don't think I was well, I might have finished it, but I messaged you immediately after I watched that film without hesitation. I was like, this is a film that I think is important. I think it's not only is important from a storytelling perspective, but because it's so well done, I think that I want to help spread the message, because I'm in the bike packing business. I want more people to go out and get on their damn bike and ride it anywhere they want to. And I think that this is a film that can help inspire people. And so from my perspective, man, job well done. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, this is some very high praise, and I love, it's always nice to hear when a story connects with people, and you never really know how it's going to connect. And I think, I always find the question when people sort of ask like, oh, what was your thinking here? Or what was the sort of meaning behind this? And I feel like, everyone takes their own meaning from any sort of story, right? They sort of latch onto their own parts. But it's nice to hear people, hear feedback where people do latch onto something within the story. There's something there that they connect with that speaks to them. And I think, this is bikepack racing or ultra endurance sport, is just really, it's so extreme. And it's very difficult to convey. Like, how do you condense 10 days or 12 days, of nonstop, kind of progression towards the finish? How do you convey that in 20 minutes or an hour, or, and that's, I've always found that obviously a huge challenge, but also like something that I've wanted to kind of get right. And I don't know that I necessarily am really fully satisfied with the final product of the Divide. There's always things that can be done better. But it's nice to know that people have resonated with it in some way that, to your point, it's going to encourage them to maybe not in the same extreme manner as Lachlan.
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
And, all these races do it. But I think like they're seeing that and they're like, wow, this is like a very formative experience, and maybe I can go out there and have that on a slightly less extreme scale, but I can have that. So that's cool.
I think that's what media is good for. When we watch Alex Honnold's free solo, not everybody went and free soloed El Capitan, right? But I fucking guarantee you, a lot of people went out and
I got into bouldering briefly after I saw that. I'm
exactly.
Like, hey, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, that's what happens. Is you find your entry point. You're like, you latch onto a part of it, and you're like, oh man, that looks epic, and I want a piece of that. I want a taste of that, and that's not everybody's going to be Lachlan. That's just not everybody's going to do the Tour Divide in 12 and a half days. That's I would think not the point of a film like that, but one, to tell his story, and two, to get people excited, get people inspired, and tap into something within them and connect with a wider audience.
Yeah, and I think like, I always see sport as somewhat creative, and not somewhat creative, very creative. And I think that people who are good at it are very creative people, because particularly in sort of elite sport now, where it is the gains are so minuscule, you have to really think outside the box. You have to think creatively in order to improve. But within bikepacking, or within ultra endurance sport, I think like, because it is so burgeoning that there is just kind of a general fascination from a majority of people who are new to it. And they're just like, wow, this is so extreme. And like, look how, sort of out there these people are. They're not really necessarily like, well, I don't know that everyone, like, people know the sport so well that they're really looking at these small parts of it. And the thing that I really loved about Lockie's ride was just the way in which he was sort of like, I'm going to go and really do this in my own way. It's like, and whether or not it's possible to go fast and, like irrespective of the official nature of it or not, like, or the unofficial nature of it rather, like it was purely like an experiment, it was this like creative approach. And that's what I really like for me took away from this story was like, I love that. Like it's sport for the sake of sport. And it's like pushing the boundaries and the limits just to see kind of like what will happen, and because there's no prize on the line, like, or there's no sort of like the prize that would be deemed like the record or whatever is already been removed. So it's like, let's just do this for the sake of seeing if it can be done. And like, that is interesting. And that's, it blows me away that someone would dedicate that amount of time and put in that much effort to something that really, could really backfire quite dramatically. And I think that's really cool about starting to see that type of approach to the sport, like that real innovative. And I think people getting on a level now where it's sort of reached a big enough audience and for long enough that people are really seeing those parts of it and that creativity and getting excited by it. And I think that'll only help push the sport forward.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And we're obviously going to talk a lot more about the film. We kind of just jumped right in. And so let me jump back just slightly. Do you go by Angus or Gus?
That's totally up to you.
Oh, okay.
I think most people tend to shorten it to Gus. Always growing up, everyone just shortened it to Gus because that's like an Aussie, it's like an Aussie thing to do is just shorten someone's name. So I kind of just go by Gus, but I don't honestly care. I think, I don't mind. I think most people call me Gus.
Well, welcome to the show, Gus. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you, mate. It's a pleasure to be here.
You answered my next question, which is if you're related to Lachlan. Y'all share a last name, but I know that you're currently residing in California. I didn't know that y'all were related. So
Lucky's
he your
my
older or younger
brother. Yeah,
younger
I'm
brother.
Older. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
wow.
I've known Lockie I've known Lockie his whole life and pretty much all mine.
How much separates y'all?
2 years, 2.5 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where are you guys from originally?
So we are from Australia, New South Wales, north of Sydney, about probably 250 miles or 200 miles.
Okay.
Yeah, about 200 miles north of Sydney on there's a town called Port Macquarie, which is like a coastal kind of small city. And then we were inland from that. We grew up on a farm, kind of on the river.
Interesting. Yeah, I have a feeling some more questions will come up about y'all's familial relationship in our chat today.
For sure.
But for you personally, I read on your website that you are a former professional cyclist. I'm curious if you've ever ridden the Divide or if you've done other similar events to this caliber that would maybe help shape, your perspective as a filmmaker and kind of have a general idea of what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, I've never done anything like the Divide in the sense of kind of like clock starts when you leave, and then it kind of finishes when you arrive, however long that takes you, however many days, and whatever you do in between, the clock's always running. But I've done a few kind of long distance bike rides. Done some in Australia, across the US, the Balkans, I don't know, Canada. Yeah. So I've done a few like kind of long, up to like, I think the longest sort of continuous ones, maybe like 30 days or something. But those are just like bikepacking, they're not like racing. So I don't have a sense for the ultra endurance racing. I've obviously done a lot of, well, not obviously, but my career was in road cycling. So I've done a lot of road racing and a lot of multi-day road races, which, I've got no idea if they're comparable or not, but I think I certainly have an understanding of like what you can, what sort of hell you can put yourself through on a bike, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you and Lachlan ever get a chance to race together or against each other during your professional careers?
Yeah, we did. I had like a kind of a split up career, but I actually retired at 21, and Lockie had sort of just gone pro, and I'd been pro for about 3 years, and then I stopped at 21, and I was actually supposed to join him over at like the junior Garmin team, and I stopped and then didn't race for I think about 4 years or so, and then we kind of did this ride together, and I hadn't touched a bike, and I got going again, and we got training, and he was like, you should race again, and we actually ended up racing on a team here in the US for a couple of years together, and the kind of pinnacle of that was Lockie winning the tour of Utah. He and I nice. He won that, and I was like his sort of final guy in the mountains. So that was like cool. We'd sort of set that as a goal before we came back, was to win like Tour of Colorado or Tour of Utah. So we got to race together for a couple of years, which is really cool. Like, I feel a similar way, and I was actually having this conversation the other day, where, you know, I distinctly remember when we finished the final stage of Tour of Utah, and Lockie took back the jersey and won the race, and my parents were there, and we were sitting in the RV after the stage, and there was just a moment of like, oh, this is a real pinnacle of our sporting career. Like if we were to come back and win again here next year, it wouldn't feel the same way. If we were to go to a new team and win something even bigger, like it wouldn't feel the same. This is like a once in a lifetime moment. And I just remember recognizing that and feeling that. And then again, you know, recently, like when Lockie finished the Divide was the first time since then. It was a real funny moment because, you know, it's just normal. Like I don't know if have you done the Divide? Like you finished like down there at Antelope. So at Antelope Wells, there's nothing there, and it was in the middle of the night.
I've covered it from a podcasting perspective. Like I've been at the end of the Tour Divide.
Yeah. So you know, like how normal, like how sort of underwhelming it is to finish. Like there's no other way to describe it than it's just such a, like, all right, we're done. Like, I guess we just chuck the bikes in the car.
Yeah, it's so anticlimactic.
Yeah, very anticlimactic. And, but there was a moment then, you know, where we're like finishing packing the car, and, you know, we're just sitting there, and you're like, like, this is it. This is like a, you know, a real moment in our lives that we will never forget, and that is very significant. And it's awesome to be able to have this moment with my brother. And it's just, I don't know. So like, it's just sort of very normal feeling, or sort of like, I don't know. I think you expect those climactic moments of your life to be very extreme. And this was sort of very not extreme. It was just like, all right, I guess we'll stop at Denny's or something, and, you know, and we've got to book into this hotel, and who's got the route, who's got phone reception to, like, you know, to pull up the map. Like, you're just having these normal conversations, which is sort of funny, because you sort of think that in those sort of moments of your life would just be so much more grand than that. But they're not. And I kind of like that, honestly.
There's a beauty in that. I think that's one of the appeals of this type of racing is you do it for yourself. You know, you don't do it for a grandstand and balloons and confetti and champagne and girls in bikinis or whatever at the finish line. You know, I mean, you finished to nothing and no one. And I appreciated that in your film. I mean, I don't know if I appreciate it, but it stood out to me because I've been at the end of the Divide a few times, and it's always shocking at, you know, how there really isn't anybody there. How if I wasn't there, there wouldn't be anybody else there. And I'm taking these guys back to Jeffrey Sharp's, you know, place in Hachita. And I was like, okay, certainly someone's going to be there for Lachlan. And nobody was there. There's no one.
Yeah. It's like, and I honestly I was wondering, as well as we're sort of going down, I'm like, I wonder if, like, maybe his wife will show up, or like, if my parents, but I think my parents were Anyway, I was wondering if anyone would show up, and no one's there, which is sick.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's really far away. Like, why would you be there?
For people who don't know, I mean, the closest town is 45, 50 minutes away in Hachita, and Hachita is barely a town. You barely call it a town. And you got to go out of your way to be there. But it's interesting. So how did you get your start? What was the transition from being a professional cyclist, and how did you transition into filmmaking, and maybe why?
Yes. Yeah. So I think growing up, I had always been into, for most of our youth, like really into cycling and racing, but also film. Just like purely enjoyed watching film and never really considered it to be like a vocation of any kind. Certainly not the making of them, And anyway, continued racing, got a few contract offers. The contract offer that I chose to take was with the team that part of the requirement of joining the team was continuing my education. And I was sort of really all in on cycling. I'd been homeschooled for the last few years because I'd missed so much of the school that I didn't meet the like minimum requirements for attendance. So I'd been, expelled from my school because I'd been traveling to race. And so I'd homeschooled and was really just was hell bent on being a cyclist, and kind of that's all I was going to be. And if I was going to go and have to study, and further my education, it might as well be in something fun. And so the college or university that I got into had a film program, and I was like, all right, I've always loved film, would love to love to know more about how it's made. So I majored in film and then in journalism as well. Just because I think through traveling so much for sport, I just had a very strong interest in kind of the human interest story and the kind of current affairs of the world. And honestly, I probably sort of thought or saw more of a direct path for the journalism side of things over the filmmaking initially. And then once I got studying and I was racing, and racing was sort of, I kept getting sick or injured, and I started to lose interest in the racing side of things and became more interested in the characters that I were meeting, on the side of the road in Qatar or in Taiwan or Malaysia or Europe or wherever, like these far away places that we'd get the opportunity to race. And so I sort of became very much interested in documentary filmmaking. When my contract was up, I sort of was like, what am I doing? I hate this sport. I've sort of, in my mind, I'd failed at it. And so I didn't renew my contract. I just flew back to Australia. And, I distinctly remember my parents were like, what the hell? My dad called me and he was like, well, if you're not going to race bikes anymore, that's how you made your living. And you're going to have to like figure out a way to support yourself. And at that point, I'd never had a job outside of working at a local bike shop. I'd worked at a bike shop since I was sort of 9 or 10, all the way through racing. And, the way we sort of funded our career was like baling hay and shit like that, just sort of like more odd jobs around the farm. But I'd never had like I was living in the city, going to university. I'd never had like a real job, I guess, in that sense. And so I sort of got mad at that and was like, well, I'm going to get a job in TV. And I did. Like, I don't know how. A lot of luck and a lot of persistence, but I got a job with a production company that was shooting a documentary, and that job sort of turned from being an intern for a few weeks into an 18-month gig that ran whilst I was studying, and I ended up, working, shooting and interviewing and kind of actually, making part of this TV show. Just, I think by virtue of the show was really super low budget, and I was just the only person who had been there since the very beginning. But that taught me a lot. I got this real rapid kind of course in sort of shooting and how post-production worked and kind of all of that, like a practical version running alongside the kind of theoretical version that I was learning in college. So that was sort of, that was kind of the transition. And then I, went from there into scripted comedy, like sketch comedy stuff. I've sort of figured out after doing a lot of doc or working in doc for a couple of years that I hated I hated how imperfect real life was. And so I was like, I want to go into scripted, because we can just sort of like fix all of these little, people would say the most amazing things bar one word. I mean, you would know this when you're editing podcasts or you're listening to someone talking, like, if they had just completed that, they'd have just said one more thing, that would be amazing. It'd be a profound thought. And so I moved across into scripted and was directing a TV show in Australia when Lockie called me and was like, let's do this bikepacking ride. And, bikepacking to me at that point in time was for like people in their mid-50s, like German cyclo-tourists, like these daggy bikes with daggy bags, and they just sort of putted around. Like I didn't have any concept of it. And anyway, we went on this ride and had this experience, and that brought me back to racing. And then I raced, and through my racing experience, I was like, all right, if the focus or the pinnacle of the sport in the broader public's eyes is the Tour de France, it's sort of seen as like that's kind of the most elite or kind of perfect version of the sport, for lack of a better word. I would sort of very harshly disagree with that. And in my mind, sport should be something that moves the world forward. And my experience within the professional cycling world, and it was something that I didn't see it benefiting the world in any way, but I saw all these other versions of it, and I'd experienced all these other versions of the sport. So I kind of like leaving racing in 2017 was my final year. I sort of made it my mission to advance and tell stories and make films about these other facets of cycling, in the effort that, the world would become more interested in bikepacking and traveling by bike and these other ways in which you can engage with the bike than they would with the Tour de France, and with seeing it as sort of almost exclusively either a means of transport or a means of competition, and so that's kind of what's led me to here. Honestly, I just sort of started doing that, and then still doing it.
Yeah, you and I, we dipped our toe in this same pond about the same time. I started my podcast in 2018, and I think we've both probably been the benefactor of, to your point, a cycling community and an awareness of different modalities of riding your bike, and really the potential therein that has kind of been not as well known. Certainly bikepack racing has been going on for a while, but has been lacking a lot of the limelight and people kind of showing a focus on it. And so it's a good thing. It's a good thing we're here, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think exactly. And I think, it's nice to be, be able to like tell these stories or be involved in like a burgeoning section of the sport where I think maybe because there isn't so much awareness about it, people are willing to like, and brands and whatever are willing to support these projects and not really like have an input because no one really has a point of view. Whereas like if we're to go and that's changing a little bit now. But at first it was just like, do whatever you want, because we don't even understand what the hell's going on. And
so true.
And that's cool because it allows like a freedom and an honesty to take over. And if I think about the way in which I approached this subject back then, back like 5-6 years ago, it was very like from the heart only. And like, I'm just doing what feels good, and it's all about just like kind of trying to flip the script and really just change the point of view. And so like, and that was sort of, I think, emblematic of my work at that point in time as well. But I think there was something really nice about being like that at that point in time, because it allowed, to kind of tell these stories in these really strange ways, maybe, that I think engages with people, or just really like, I think just open people's eyes up to, or maybe helped open people's eyes up to like all of these different ways in which you can participate, which at the end of the day, you can do it in any way you want. And I think that's the point.
Amen.
Ultimately is like, It doesn't have to be ultra endurance racing. It doesn't have to be criterium racing or time trialing or whatever. It doesn't even have to be commuting. Like you can sort of do it in whichever way you want. And it's one thing to like say that to people, because it's kind of a pithy sentiment. You know, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
Yeah. But like, what does that even mean? And then it's like, well, if you show someone a certain way of doing it, well, then it's like you're only showing them that way. If you're telling a story about one way of riding a bike, people are going to be like, well, you've excluded it. You know, that's at the expense of all other ways of riding a bike. And that's true if you just look at it in that way. So it's not an easy thing to convey. Like, and I think in my mind, it was like, well, what are just like really wacky ways of riding, or like what are ways that sort of, they're not, you almost wouldn't even consider them the point of the activity to be the riding. It's like this other part of the experience that the riding like helps you get to. And that's kind of like, I think what drove me and like drove me early on was like, how can we sort of get people to look past the sort of modality of the riding and see the experience? And I don't know if that was successful or not, but I think that was definitely like initially the big drive for me, is like, how can we open people's eyes to sort of not, I guess, like, how can we open people's experience up and for them to kind of be emboldened to be like, I have this way that I've never seen anyone else participate in this thing, and I'm going to do it that way.
Right.
That's
open
like
up some hearts and minds, open them up. Yeah.
Ideally.
So we're media, and you're probably aware that in the bike pack space, in this ultra endurance space, especially with the Tour Divide, there's been controversy surrounding media on the Tour Divide. You address it at the very beginning of your film, and I think we should address it kind of towards the beginning of this podcast as well. So as a starting point, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, what is the official rule as it pertains to doing an ITT or a group start on the Tour Divide as it relates to media and film crews?
I don't know what the official rule is. I just basically know that like any individual, an individual isn't allowed like individualized media coverage, and I think that's what the rule is. But basically, like if Lachlan's to turn up on the start line, if there's someone there that's covering all of the other people as well as Lachlan, that's fine. But if it's just me in the way that we did it, that's just covering Lachlan, that's considered like some level of assistance, and so therefore like it would invalidate the time as it pertains to the record. Which is that's fine.
Yeah, it's their race. They can make the rules. I guess it's,
and that's sort of, I think, like kind of sport wide as well. It's sort of seen as like I know, like doing the Colorado Trail, it was the same thing.
And AZT,
and like AZT.
At least with the top three, with the Triple Crown, Tour Divide, AZT, and Colorado Trail race, those three races currently share this same rule. They all have different race directors, but they all adhere to that same general rule, where if you have a film crew dedicated to you, it cannot be counted as an official time. So how aware were y'all of this rule prior to having the idea to make this film? How aware of you? I mean, it all kind of started with Lael at Tour Divide in 2019. That was the first time this issue really came to light, and it became somewhat controversial within this community. So how aware were y'all of that dynamic before y'all set out to do this film?
Very aware. Like I shot a film about Lael on the Tour Divide in 2021, and we were aware of it then. I was aware of it in 2019, and then every ultra since then that I've been involved in. So like Lockie's Colorado Trail record, or like Ride that wasn't a record. So we've been super aware of them. And like, in terms of, I know with in all of my experiences with Lael and with Lockie, it's always been like, yeah, that's fine if it's not counted. And that's sort of been a thing that's been expressed beforehand. Like I know, like with Lockie before the Colorado Trail, like there was a conversation he had with the dude who runs the trail, organizes the event, where he was like, Lockie was like, I'll be on the route and you will no doubt hear about it. But this is by no means a record. And I think that dude's response was like, well, you're not allowed to have the record. Which was sort of like typical. And then with the Tour Divide, I think it was obviously already stated like before he left as well. And he doesn't care. I mean, he was like, I don't care, I think, the thing that is really sad about all of this is like that people get so upset about it, having not understood necessarily the whole, and that's whatever, we all react to things on face value, and people feel very passionate about this sport, whether that's misguided or not. I'm not being the judge. But I think for these athletes, I've seen the very real world impact on Lockie and on Lael and on Lael's wife, Rue, like of this just crazy stuff that people say and come out and say, and it's like, what? Anyway, so like, I think that's where the sad part of it is that it becomes a debate about that, as opposed to a debate about, the sport and like how, as a decentralized community, it can sort of like move forward in a somewhat harmonious way without eating itself. And, I think I would argue that maybe it's past that point now. And like, the gangrene's already set in and the foot's already rotted off. But whatever, that's just me from the outside seeing it and sort of judging people's just seeing it from the outside.
Yeah, it's it is sad. It's too bad that, I mean, even now I'm feeling the need to address this like right off the gate, because it is a hot button topic that people have developed very strong and passionate feelings about. And I find it interesting because I do feel like there's a place for both. I interviewed Lael about her AZT, ITT. She doesn't care about the official record.
Yeah, exactly.
Lachlan doesn't care about the official record. And, I don't know why there's this major controversy and discussion going on when we're talking about, earlier in our conversation, we're talking about the different modalities, the different ways of riding your bike. I think this falls in that category. The route is out there. And if you would like to have the film documented, I think that's at the writer's discretion, at Lael's, at Lachlan's discretion, if they care if it's a recognized time or not,
And
go ahead.
I mean, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think like that's my sort of issue with it, is that like there are these people, Lael in particular, who are really have done a lot for this sport in encouraging. And when I say a lot for this sport, maybe that's where the issue lies, is when you speak about it in that way. So I'm not going to speak about it that way. Lael has done a lot for people and human beings around the world, in that she has shown them something that they had never seen and encouraged them to participate in something that they never thought they ever could. That's bikepacking, and that has enriched their lives. And it's always a shame to see when someone has done something like that for humanity, to see that person have to endure and the people that they love have to endure this like very direct, often misguided criticism. And I think that's where this becomes sort of like a real sad thing, because I have no issue with the rules, and I have no issue with them being enforced, and also, you know, I definitely have an issue with them not being open to development and open to sort of like more I guess like like a panel or a progressive organization that is assessing those rules on a consistent basis. I think that's always important, but I have no issue with them, and I think neither do, from what we understand, like Lachlan and Lael, these two people who seem to cop a lot of criticism for their participation in these events with the film crew. And so I think when that starts to happen, like that's the kind of like, that's the sad part, because you're like, we had such a good thing going here, you know, and no one's really trying to like mess with anybody here. Right. We're all just trying to like share this thing that we love. And then it becomes this personal thing, and it gets to a point where people like Lael and people like Lachlan won't do it anymore. Eventually, you know, like eventually you're just going to be like, all right, like the amount of criticism or the amount of like just sort of like ridicule that I am subject to like outweighs it. And what does that mean? You know, what does that mean for the sport when these, you know, these people who have been, you know, have come in and had like, you know, a large impact, like when people like that no longer participate, like what hole does that leave? And sure, that hole will be filled, but like, who will it be filled by? Because people see that experience that these other people have, and they're like, I'm going to do something else, or like, am I going to involve myself in this? And, you know, whether or not you think progress is good or bad, it's a reality. And you cannot say that the motivations of Lachlan and Lael haven't been in the interests of the sport, or like in the interests of encouraging people and showcasing like the sport to more people to get them to be involved. And so that's, you know, I think a sad part of this conversation. But it's also like, it's not, you can't turn around and be like, you're wrong, because everyone's opinion is valid and everyone's emotional response to these things are valid. You know, I think it's indicative of just how amazing this sport is, that people feel so passionate about it and they feel the need to protect it in some way. And so like, it's kind of this, you know, looking from the outside in, you're like, you're all saying the same goddamn thing. You all fucking love this sport and you all want the best for it. And like, you're all saying the same thing, but you're just too close to it and you're all just like yelling down each other's throats. And like, that's kind of hard to watch.
It is hard to watch. And it's not for me. And obviously you're not interested in telling people which side of the aisle they should fall on. I am for having conversations though. I'm very interested in talking about things and understanding where people are coming from and why, and helping to further the conversation around media. One anecdotal thought that I have, and I'm curious, I bet you've seen something similar in your life, is that through like your films and being a part of this community, is almost everybody that I interview or talk to found out about bikepacking through some form of media, you know, whether it was the Mike Dion film, right? The Divide, and now maybe the Divide film. And that is how people are most, by and large, getting introduced to the sport. And aren't we better as a community of cyclists who are passionate about this with more of us? You know? Yeah. And so, but at the same time, I want to make sure I'm very clear, because this is a hot button topic. I also believe in the rules. And if the rules are the rules, then absolutely follow them. But why isn't there an equal amount of space available for people to go and do it, share their experience with the world, and stoke the flame of this amazing community that we're all passionate about, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. And I think like these events, unless, I mean, like who's going out to the basin in Montana to like, I'm in California. Like, I'm not going to just whip out there to watch like one or two people come through, stand out there for a week and see like a dozen people during the divide, like, so I'm never going to get that experience, right? I'm never going to be able to like comprehend what it looks like, but also like maybe partially what it feels like to like witness people moving through that landscape. Because it's one thing to do it yourself, but it's one thing to like see someone do it and be able to actually like see the scale. And so I think like by large, the nature of these events is they are so remote and they are so grand that it's impossible to like spectate them. And so that it makes sense that like most people become aware of them and really get hooked on them because of the media that is surrounding them. So I think like, I think it's, I always look at this just from a storytelling point of view, particularly nowadays. And I think there's just so many good stories in this sport, just from an entertainment point of view. And that gets me excited on it, as someone who's ridden their bike their entire life in all sorts of different ways. And it's been my job, for the better part of, like 15, like 17 years or something. And these are like, it's these stories now that are the thing that get me excited about it, like, cause just knowing that it's there isn't the thing that gets me excited now. Like when I see these people and these characters and these experiences, I'm like, oh, it reminds me, and it draws that excitement back out in me. I'll go months without riding and then I'll work on a project or I'll, see something, I'll watch like a film or something and it gets me psyched again. And then I'm back out on the bike and I'm riding again because it's like, So
That's so well said. You go to a dinner table with your friends and that aren't familiar with this sport and you tell them about this race that goes from Banff to Antelope Wells along the Continental Divide. It's all off road. You got to carry all your own shit. And people cannot comprehend it. There's no, it just passes over their head because it is so far outside of their ability to comprehend what you're talking about. And then you show them a film and they're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's what I think is cool because there's something, like human beings, there's the theory that we sort of, why human beings have proliferated around the world. One of the theories is the kind of patterning instinct, which is this intrinsic desire within us to like scale a mountain, or to like look at an ocean and be like, I wonder what's on the other side. We should find out, like no other species possesses that. Like that's like a death wish, every other species is like, where can I get food? Where can I get shelter and like be safe?
Yeah.
But we don't have that. And in the in modern society where we've been everywhere, like it's these things that are that primal, it's these ultra endurance, these crossing of continents that like evoke that primal instinct within all human beings to like scale that mountain. And so like when you witness it, like it's so embedded within us as a species that like you can't help but like resonate with it in some way and kind of be captivated by the like myth of it. And that's why I love being able to tell these stories visually, because they're visually arresting and really stunning. But then just like the knowledge, like you just see, this little dot just moving slowly across the landscape in the frame. And you're just like, whoa, like look how slow he's going, like that's taking forever. Like, and then you're like, look at her, she's like ragged and it's only day 2, or like, look at him, he's like bleeding or whatever. Like he's complaining about this and it's only day 4, So like all of these kind of just getting the scale of it and getting the intimacy of it that can really only be conveyed through like someone else being there and documenting it, I think like speaks to something within all of us that kind of like it triggers us all in a way to like do it. And
it shows us that crazy shit's possible.
Yeah.
Man. It really doesn't open up your mind.
For real. And it shows you like, oh, you can do these really extreme things as a human being. And like, And it's almost like, well, what is the limit? And even if you don't want to find what the limit is, it kind of allows you to be like, well, I thought my limit was doing a 30-mile group ride, but maybe my limit's like far greater than that. Maybe it's like I can ride from San Fran to LA, or maybe it's I can do the divide. Like, so I think that's like where being able to document these stories has like a very like strong impact. Strong impact, whatever. It has an effect on people that can only happen within, from seeing something like a person riding across the country. And that's like we've all ridden our bikes long distances. Like it's a profound experience. It's something that like I believe everyone should have a version of in their lives, because it will, it can only improve you as a person. And so that's a cool, and I think like important thing that we don't want to lose sight of is like, at the end of the day, like if it gets more people to have an experience that makes them better, like it should kind of be our job as people who have experienced that to encourage and to share that experience.
That is so well said. Yeah. I feel that responsibility. For me,
you're doing it
I would not be here today doing what I do if it wasn't for the Ride the Divide film. I just wouldn't. That's how I was introduced to it. And I'm just one person. And I hope that, my efforts are rippled through the community and I'm impacting people's lives. And the ripples of that one film has had a huge and enormous impact, I think, in my opinion, in a positive way for our community. I've talked to endless people who have been inspired by that film or other films that Lael's been in, or I haven't talked to anyone that's been inspired by this one yet because it just came out, but I'm sure I will. I have no doubt that I will.
Yeah. And I think like the thing that always blows me away and like about, what you're doing, like what Lockie's doing, like these people within this small sport, because it is somewhat small, let's say. But like the thing that always blows me away is like, there's like people that sort of actively, or let's say like publicly participate in this community, the bikepacking community. But there's like a crazy amount of people one step removed that like dip their toe in, or they're not like hardcore in it, but they like will somehow come across like a Lael Wilcox story somewhere, like on REI or like whatever, like YouTube algorithm, and they don't go any further than that, right? Like they just have that one experience with it, but then they go out and they do their own ride or they do their own sort of thing, but they're not necessarily like plugged as directly into the world as like you or I, or like they might like hear an episode of your podcast because like there's a character, again, Lael or like someone like that, Sofyan, like that they're aware of from another part in their life and they touch on it. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that like there is this larger impact within the general community of sports people, I think, that like these stories and this like effort reaches that like the people for us that are in it, like you never even realize that. And that's a really cool thing. Like, and I think that doesn't happen maybe it does in badminton occasionally, or like these sort of other niche sports that like when you watch them, unless you really know the sport very well, the appreciation of the skill that's being demonstrated is somewhat lost. But with this, it's not, because you instantly hear, wait, you rode 2,700 miles in fucking 14 days. Like, whoa, like you don't have to have any context to know that that's crazy. And cool. So that's the other thing that always blows me away about this is like, there's this kind of like hidden impact that these stories have that sort of live on or move on in a way that we're maybe not even aware of, because it's not directly like bringing people into our core community, but it's bringing them in a different way, or it's maybe pushing them into another community that's sort of adjacent somewhere else, in another sport or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, to internalize that, I'll reference Alex Honnold again. And I'm not a rock climber. I'm not a big fan of heights. I respect that sport greatly and I follow it closely. I think I've watched every fucking film and short film that's ever been produced on climbing. I'm not a climber. My screen, whatever thing, my backdrop, my wallpaper on my desktop for years was Alex Honnold as he was sitting on that ledge of the wall, just freaking the fuck out, before he kept going. And I had a little caption that I wrote on it. It said, "So what will you do today?" And that, I'm not a climber, but it inspired the fuck out of me. You know, and I think about that too all the time, and it's kind of mind blowing. And for those reasons, I'm a big fan and a believer in the power of media, the power of storytelling to showcase the human potential, human passion, what we can tap into and what we can do as humans and how we can share those experiences so that other people can also find in themselves a way to tap into their own internal passion, their own motivation and their own strength to go and do anything in their life. It doesn't even have to be riding a bike. It could be, climbing a mountain or whatever it is, and that's the thing that I get excited about tapping into. And I also believe in following the rules. So just be clear.
No, exactly right. And that's like, but I guess my feeling about all of this is that these are two very separate things, but they've sort of somehow become,
unfortunately,
somehow become blended, and unfortunately, and a bit enmeshed and a bit entangled. And I think we will, like, as a sport, people will sort of reconcile the two and kind of move past it. Like, I think sometimes when new things happen or things change sort of quite dramatically, people adapt and respond in different ways, and it sort of takes time for everyone to sort of homogenize again. So I think we will, but I think that's just like the challenge now. And I don't think anyone would I guess what I'm saying is I don't think anyone would disagree with the two as separate concepts. And I think it's just that there's like some confusion about how everybody's interpreting or how each of us are interpreting it or like viewing it. It's making it.
Well, sorry to cut you off. Again, I don't like to tell anyone what to do, but I do really value the importance of having conversations, especially around topics that are difficult. And right now, this is one of those challenging topics. And so I would like to move on from media and actually talk about your film. Before we leave this topic, is there any last thoughts that you have as it pertains to media and the sport or this film in particular?
I mean, only an extension of what you just said, and that would be that most of the time, if we sort of get past like whatever our kind of annoyance is or aggression or disagreement initially with what the other person or what the opposing point of view is, you'll often find like a common ground. And I can tell you 100% for sure in this community, we have a lot in common. Like we all love riding our bikes. We all love doing these extreme things. So I think most of us will find that if you can see just beyond that point, we actually kind of share the same point of view on just about everything, and that we're all a little bit more nuanced than maybe a comment on Instagram or, like a headline on something or other would have us believe. So
absolutely.
That's all I've got to say.
No, very well said. It's why I'm a big fan of and the host of a podcast, because I believe in the minutia of people and the layered and complexities of conversations and topics and people's personal perspectives, whatever it may be. We are not as simplified as a comment on social media, and these are topics that are worth talking about. And I appreciate you adding your voice to the conversation, and hopefully it moves the needle forward in a positive way.
And I mean, I think you do a very good job of that and have done a very good job of that and have been somewhat of a leader I would say, in the community because of your ability to have these conversations and present these points of views in a way that doesn't like kick off, doesn't trigger everyone to like kick off in a way. It allows everyone to sort of be like, all right, whatever, but I'm seeing both sides of it, or I'm able to like kind of understand this point of view a little bit more than maybe I did before, as opposed to inciting it further. So that's a huge kudos to you.
Well, I genuinely appreciate that. That is, in fact, my exact goal. All right. So the film, The Divide,
Yes.
We're talking about audiences. Who was your intended audience? Who do you think, when you created this film, who were you mostly trying to reach?
That's a really good question. I think like consciously, I don't know that I necessarily gave it a ton of thought. But I think probably my approach definitely consciously was like, I don't want to make a film that is bikepacking 101. And so we have to explain everything because I feel like there's this fallacy within any sort of kind of content production that the audience needs to be really walked along from the origin of the thing. So they really need to fully understand it. And there's a level of understanding that sure needs to happen, but I think we don't need to really spell it out all the time. So I didn't want to have to kind of do this bikepacking 101 thing. But I also didn't want to make a film that was sort of too bogged down in like what the sport is. I just wanted to be like, here is the American West, and here is this person under their own steam traveling from the north to the south, and just getting lost in that, and sort of just being able to witness and sort of progress through this journey with this character. So in that regard, I guess I was trying to make the film for an audience of people who love adventure, not necessarily bikepacking fans. And, you know, so sort of trying to make it, I guess, for a general audience in the sense that it was just watching someone sort of travel through this very beautiful and kind of treacherous landscape under their own power.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach. So the Tour Divide race, or the Tour Divide route, it covers 2,700 miles, 2 countries, 5 states, and for Lachlan, it took 12 and a half days. How did you approach actually capturing the ride, and what challenges did just filming such a massive, different landscapes and the time and the terrain and weather? Like, what was your approach to actually filming it from like a technical standpoint, and what challenges did this present?
Yeah, well, good question. And I think like initially when this idea kind of began to become a reality, I was like, all right, you know, I've already made a film about the Tour Divide, and I've already, you know, made lots of films about bikepacking. But this is the kind of, you know, this is the pinnacle of routes. And I love the American West. You know, I've been enthralled by it ever since I first sort of saw it. And so I was like, well, the thing that got me the most excited about it was, I guess, being able to photograph and film the American West and this landscape. And so that was sort of my starting point, was like, well, I love this landscape and I really want to do it justice. And so I was like, well, let's approach it in the same way that, you know, a lot of Westerns have been shot with anamorphic lenses, you know, really like trying to capture the depth and the space. And then it became like, all right, well, let's figure out how we can do that, but also be nimble and kind of follow this, you know, because it's a race. It essentially, you know, this person never stops. We can't get them to do anything twice. And we don't really have a lot of resources to kind of, like we have a limited amount of resources, so we can only have so many people and so many vehicles and whatever. And then also there's like a scale or a economies of scale there that really is quite small. And so it then became like, well, what can be the most sort of cinematic way that we can capture this and guarantee that we get a film out of it in the end? And so from there, it was, like I said, like it was anamorphic lenses to capture the depth and the scope of the landscape. And then it was, all right, well, let's see if we can bring like a little jib arm, like crane. And then, so we would build that up, but that would take a certain amount of time and that would slow down the action. So then it was like, okay, if we want to kind of use these two critical visual tools to tell the story, that's going to slow us down a lot from a production standpoint. So then it was like, well, how can we factor that into the story? So then it became about these big sweeping landscape shots, like slowing the pace of the film down, finding and thinking about framing that allowed us to kind of tell a complete story within one or two shots versus having to have lots of coverage in order to like showcase a landscape or in order to, demonstrate the scope or the gravity of a situation. And so it sort of became really about, all right, we can go slow, but we really have to think about every shot that we're getting because we are so slow, we're only going to have so many opportunities. And then the challenge became, he was going a lot faster than I thought. He was going about 20% faster than I anticipated. And that, like, even though you're in a car and all of this, that like the first few days we were playing catch up. It was like, oh, like we have to move a lot faster than we thought. We're going to actually have to lose one or two shots a day. And not that we were even that planned, but just generally speaking, it's like, all right, we're going to have to kind of cut back our expectation here in order to make sure we still continue to get the quality that we want. And so like that, I think, like once all of that was established, the big challenges became, one, having the confidence that only getting sort of 6 shots a day was enough, and being like, this is enough to tell the story. And that it is from a technical standpoint, but you're also just like the temptation to kind of just get more for the sake of being like, well, we've shot a ton today, so there's got to be something in there.
Right.
So I think that was a big challenge, was just having the confidence to like back yourself and be like, no, we're going to really make sure we're just going to go until we find a spot that's going to get us the shot that we need right now, and like thinking about that. And then the other one, of course, is just like safety, I guess. Fortunately, Lockie was sleeping 6 hours a night, so that allowed us to have, maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. But that's still not a lot. That's not a lot of sleep, and you have to kind of do quite a bit of work surrounding just being able to shoot. And so it was just the challenge was like not getting carried away with trying to match Lachlan on, okay, be there from the moment he wakes up, or like, be nearby, and then getting these shots throughout the entire day. It was sort of like, all right, we've got 12 days of this. We need to slow down. We need to pace ourselves so we don't burn out. So that was a real big challenge because, the temptation's always there, and you get caught up in, it is really beautiful, and you're trying to get the best light, and the best light happens at each end of the day. And so that was a big challenge. And then I just say general, like accessibility. The route's quite accessible if you're to compare it to the Colorado Trail, for example. But like there was one night there where we actually got stuck. Like we got the truck stuck on the side of the mountain in this super steep section. We had to like sleep up there on the side of the mountain. And then in the basin, when it rains, like everyone knows about the peanut butter mud, and cars are very, very equally susceptible to that. And there was a few moments, we just before we entered the basin, there was a random dude in a gator on the side of the road, and we're like, is it safe for us to drive through here? because it had just been raining. And he's like, yeah. A couple guys got out here earlier this morning. And we're like, all right. And then like you start driving and the car starts sliding off the road. And you're like, how much earlier this morning did this guy get off there? And like, and then so there's like quite a few moments like that where just like the general level of stress of being like, we're going to get stuck here. And what would that mean for the production, because Locke's not going to stop. And then of course, for me personally, watching Lockie go into these really dangerous situations and not being able to do anything about it, and almost knowing that he was going into making a bad decision, not almost, fully knowing. You're like, oh yeah, he's like making the wrong choice right now. And you just got to sit there and watch him do it. And that was really hard and something I didn't expect to be hard beforehand, because like I sort of had, for the most part, anytime I've worked with him and anytime I work with anyone, it's story first, and that's the priority, and their own safety and whatever's their responsibility. And that's one thing when it's not your sibling that's doing it, but then when you're watching, your younger brother do something, that really came in a few times where I was like, you wouldn't be there and there would be a storm, or there would be, you'd see him ride off into somewhere and you're just like, all right. And you see him go. And then 10 minutes later, you're like, what the fuck did I just do? I should this isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Like, what if something happens? Like, what's the point? I should have stopped him,
He's tired. He's not thinking clearly. He's calorie deficient. I should stop him.
Yeah. And there was a lot of that for me where I really had to, and this is kind of maybe a bit fucked up, but I really had to be like, all right, it's up to him. And like, if something happens, we'll know because he'll stop moving on the tracker, and, like we can call for help. And for the most part, it's not that remote. So there's always people around, so like you just had to trust that, and then just sort of trust that, like, if it comes to that, well, it comes to that, and we'll be there. But if it doesn't come to that and we were to step in or to fuck this thing up, like, it would be, the repercussions would be far more, kind of grand in a sense of things. So like, I was always like, all right, I'm just going to have to like, just suck it up and like, kind of like, withhold that, or like kind of not display any of that worry, or at least to, outwardly outside of the crew. So yeah, that was another sort of surprising challenge.
Yeah, let's dig in there just slightly. What made it in the film was that storm, and was it in Wyoming?
Yeah, it was in Wyoming.
Just a ruthless lightning storm, high winds. You could feel the drama through the screen. Was that the most gnarly, scariest situation, or were there others that didn't make it into the film? Like, what was the scariest situation, at least from your perspective?
I would say, actually, there was one that for sure, that stretch, because the weather had been really unpredictable, over the day leading up to that. And then he'd had this conversation, which is in the film, where they're looking at the map and the lady's like, it's saying only 10% chance of rain. And that was true. It was like, and he sort of rides off, and then we look and it starts to change, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a second. Like, these storms are blowing through really fast. And like, it's saying 10% chance of rain up there, like right now. But if we look at this system that's coming down, so then you're like, okay, he just hasn't looked at this properly, and he's definitely going to get destroyed. But you didn't think it was going to be so bad. And then we couldn't follow him. Like, that whole, we had to actually drive. We have to drive back out around through Jackson. It's like about a 3.5 hour drive to get around to the other side of that ridge line. And on that drive, like it starts to set in, because it's just, the storms are getting worse, like, as you're getting closer to the location and you're seeing all of this. So like, and then you just start thinking of the worst case scenario. So that was like a really intense experience. And then And then we sort of saw him and he was freaked out, like majorly freaked out. And I was sort of like, all right, I'm going to just wait until he says that he's not going to wait until he says that he's quitting.
Right.
And then I'll like help him and get him in the car and whatever. And I was like, he's definitely going to say it. Like I've never seen him so freaked out. And then he just like switched and he just was like, all right. And he just rode off. And then we as a crew were like, what do we do here? And he wasn't far from town at that point. And we're like, well, I mean, he's moving. And fortunately from that point, like it, the storms didn't, it no longer stormed once he kind of headed into town. It was just light rain. So whatever, you just sort of like, well, at least we know where he is and whatever. We sort of would go ahead and wait for him and you could see the dot moving. But then the following day, like we woke up and it was like torrential rain again. And it was kind of one of those things like, this can't be possible. And then again, like he stopped, and we had to drive quite far to reach him. And like, he's been stopped for a while and then you start freaking out. And that was when he was in the bathroom, which is in the film. And then he left the bathroom and we all get in the car and we start driving, and our route map was like on this, in a few sections, it was like, it would just be slightly different. It would be like, it would have us turning, like a block later or a block earlier or something on, like in some of those back roads, there'll be like a few entry points. And so we drive down the road and we drive down the road about a half mile or a mile and past him. And we're like, okay, it's crazy wet. And there are these big road signs saying, like be careful, rain or flooding or something. And we're like, let's get one of those road signs and him coming through. So we drive ahead like maybe another mile and a half and get out, set up the shot, and we're standing there. And then there's nothing, no Lachlan. And this road was like, the rain was torrential. The road was really busy, like cars hauling ass along there. And after like 20 minutes, his dot hadn't moved. His dot was like still showing him back at the rest stop. And so then I like got in the truck. I was like, okay, you guys stay here. Like something's happened. And I get in the truck and I start driving and I can't see him. I'm like going. And then I get back to the same point where we had overtaken him. And I'm like, and I hadn't seen him. And I was just like, holy shit. Like, has he been like, am I going to like find him in a ditch? And there was like a real like 2-minute period there where I was just like, he's been hit and he's like off the side of the road. And like, I'm about to find my brother like dead on the side of the road. Like that was and it was this crazy.
And this is right.
feeling.
I mean, he's doing this right on the heels of Jay Petterberry, right?
Exactly.
I mean, this was after
like
Jay Petterberry got hit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
God damn.
Jay had just been hit and like, he just had this crazy experience the night before and the crazy experience that morning where like, he shouldn't have got through that night before, like something should have happened that morning. And I was just like, this is it. Like, this is, why did we let him ride out of that rest stop? So I was like freaking out and I couldn't find him. And then I was like, I'd like turned around and I was driving. And then I guess I'd gotten at some point in that 1 mile stretch, like my phone had gotten cell reception and updated his tracker. And it had like, I had the little red line on my phone where the route was, and it had him just in. And it showed him as moving, and it showed him like it had pinged within the last 2 minutes. And I'm like, oh, he's just on the frontage, like he's just on the road over there. He's fine. And like, but it was just the intense, like I had a real major freak out. And then I drove back to the guys and like got them in the car, and I'm like, he's actually just there's another road, like, like 500 yards in that paddock, and he's just on that. Man. And so anyway, so then we like, then you continue on. So I think that was probably the most intense, just because of everything that had led up to it. And then it was just that we were all so fried. Like we hadn't that stretch. We'd been stuck on the side of the mountain, and then, so we hadn't really slept. And then there was a few nights of, just basically no sleep. And then we got to, and then we're at that point, it was like this run up. And after that, I was like, all right, we need to take a bit better care of ourselves because we're only on day 5 and we're fried, like we're all, well, at least I was kind of like emotionally, like just,
right.
Yeah, a little bit too on the limit. Unfortunately, weather-wise, it got better after that, and it just became mechanical problems. So who cares?
Right. And you traded one problem for another.
Yeah, he
problem.
can just have, but I don't care about that. He can have. I'm loving that. Have those all day. That's great.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, that's good.
At least
drama
you're not going to
there.
die.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's crazy. I really, I guess the word is I appreciated that part of the film because as a fan, a spectator, and a podcast host, and I talk to these people and they say, I was in this gnarly storm and there was lightning all around and it was fucking crazy and scary and I was crying in my tent. You know, that show you could the intensity and the scariness of the situation was palpable. It was palpable, and I felt that. I'm like, oh fuck, stop, Lachlan. I through the screen, I'm like, okay, get in the car, buddy. And then when he rode off into it, oh man, that just tells a whole different story of like a mindset that I don't have, and I don't even want to have, to be honest with you. But a lot of people do, and that sequence right there shows you exactly what not just Lachlan went through, but a lot of these people who do these events. When you're out on course for 2-3 weeks, you're going to get caught in some shit, and that showed you.
Yeah, and that's like Lockie and I were talking about that after after he finished, and we're like, the thing about it is like that route is going to throw that storm at you, irrespective of when you do it, and it'll be somewhere along the route there will be something like that is just so like hellish and so beyond the realm of any of your experiences before. That's why the route is just so grueling, and why people have like hold it in such high regard, because at some point, just by virtue of the topography and the length of it, it's going to like rattle you, and there's no way you can be prepared for it. And I think like, with that sequence, that's what we're trying to convey. And honestly, like, obviously we'd never intended to put the crew in the film. Well, not obviously, but we hadn't intended, but because we weren't there with him, but we were having this genuine freak out. And like, I had no idea that Ryan was filming. He just started filming, I think, because we were sort of all a bit freaked out. And it was only afterwards that like I discovered we had that footage, and I was like, I think this is the way to convey just how helpless like we are, but also like how helpless he is, because you're in the situation. When you're in it, like, it's not like you can just be like, stop lightning, or it's not like you can sort of put up like a Faraday cage of some sort that'll like, protect you from it. Like, you're just out there and it's just going to go. And that was the same feeling that we had when you're driving along the road and that they're over there in that, shitstorm, and you're over here and there's nothing you can do. You're just like, well, it's going to be what it is. And there's a waiting. There's like this crazy tense waiting period for it just to end. And so like that's, like we were fortunate. I was fortunate that Ryan shot that so that we were able to at least sort of recreate this mirroring of the feeling. And then to your point, you then see this person and they're rattled and then they just ride off again. And they're on the side of the road for all of 2 minutes and then they just go and you're like, something wrong with you.
That was a brilliant editorial decision to include that, because it was through your anxieties. The film crews, y'all were on the verge of freaking out. It seemed like you're trying to keep it together, but you could feel the intensity. And I think if you don't capture that, you just see Lachlan ride up and it's raining and it's lightning and he goes off. You're like, oh, it's raining and that's a crazy storm and maybe you shouldn't ride in it. But to have that juxtaposition of y'all's reaction to what he's experiencing, and you're in a car, right? You're like, I can't believe he's out there riding in this shit,
Yeah. And that's like, I don't know if that makes it worse. But I also think just generally for like what I think makes stories about this sport so fascinating in the same way like climbing and these things is like because it's so visceral. It elicits something within us, like, and we're like, oh, I'm in my home watching this and I'm cold. Imagine how cold he would have been out there. And
Right.
that's the feeling you have when you're in the car. You're almost freaking out doubly because you're like, it's intense here and I'm in the car, and I'm dry and I'm warm. Like it must be a million times worse than this outside. So your imagination takes hold and it kind of, I don't know if it doesn't necessarily overblow it, but it just goes in all of these different directions and it's like, and then when you finally get the closure, it's like that relief is like immense, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
like he's fine. Thank God. Like,
Yeah, you nailed it.
yeah,
So that's one that you captured. Tell me about a moment, an experience that either you filmed and it was out of focus, or for whatever reason it didn't make the editing, the final cut, or you just missed the shot completely. But tell us something that didn't make the film.
That's a good question. I mean, there's lots of moments. It's sort of strange though, because I think like, Lockie's racing. We don't have contact with him when we don't see him. And obviously we talk to him when we see him and that, but he's sort of so in the zone and sort of doing his thing that, we just show up and shoot and then he kind of disappears and like maybe he'll be like, he told lots of stories about like, oh, I saw wolves. And you're like, what? He's like, yeah, there was like a pack of wolves up there, or like there was a bear, or there was some moose, and I think like, so there was like stories like that. And then I guess from a filmmaking point of view, this would probably matter to people, but the amount of times that we set up the crane
Mm-hmm.
and we would be like almost done. And you're like, this shot's going to be sick. Like, we're going to do this move and we're still building it up. And then he just rides through. And you're just like, no. Like, and then you're just like, all right, break it down. So there was like lots of those sort of moments. But then for the most part, like in terms of like, there was just like lots of beautiful shots that, weren't in focus, like were maybe misfocused, or like we just couldn't get them to work within the story. Like a lot of that, a lot of gas station moments, like hilarious interactions with the people at the gas station, I think that didn't end up making it. But like for the most part, like because he's just going, we're really only would catch him and then you film with him for a minute and then he's gone to sleep or he's gone on down the road. But he has a lot. Like he has a lot of stories. And we're kind of thinking of maybe doing a version of the film with a commentary where like he'll talk about what had happened, what he was thinking or feeling, or the experience he had just had like prior to a shot or prior to a moment in the film. And then I can talk about how like we, got that shot and the organization of it.
I think that'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
I know I cover some bike races. I do a little photography,
Mm-hmm.
and I really relate to what you were saying. And I was kind of anticipating a similar that answer to some degree, because when you're covering a bike race, there's a lot of logistically that goes into it. One, the spot tracker isn't always accurate. It can stop updating, and so you don't know where they are. And I can't tell you how many times I've set up in a spot and waited for someone to come by, and they were already past me, and I didn't realize it because the spot tracker was off. Or, I've waited in the most epic spot to get the right shot because I've timed it perfectly and the lighting's going to be perfect. And then they stop on the side of the road for a nap or a snack, and then it's nighttime. And
you just reminded me of something.
Okay.
We were like, did exactly that. We were on like on the Navajo reservation just south of Cuba, and we're waiting to set up the shot. Same thing, he doesn't come through. And we're like, what the fuck? We wait a bit longer, and then we put the drone up, and he's like asleep. He'd like was riding down the road, and he got right before us, and he was like obviously just super tired. So he just pulled over on the side of the road and just went onto the ground and just went to sleep and was like sleeping on the side of the road like a mile up the road. So we're like running down there, and then he gets up right when we get there. So we didn't get the shot. So like that's like a good example of something we missed. And the horses. There was also like a bunch of kind of tornado-y things that would be off in the distance, which you can see. It's like on the last day, there's a shot that's kind of over the shoulder of Lockie, like in the last 5 minutes of the film, 10 minutes of the film. And there's on the left of frame, you'll see like a willy, we call them in Australia, but there's another word for them here. But it's like funnel. A little twister thing. Yeah, like a little funnel. And so like that, there was like a bunch of those that were kind of crazy. But the other thing I think that, at least for me, that's like I never think about, even though I've done this so many times, is just like trying to back up cards and hard drives and like, and like we had to, because we just had the sheer amount of gear, we couldn't, like we camped, I think only one night because we had to, but we just, the amount of gear and backing up that we had to do, I just made the decision at the beginning. I was like, we're just going to have to go to hotels and recharge, so you can clean gear, recharge back up and like clean gear, because it was just everything was getting so trashed and it was all such big equipment. So the amount of driving that we did, just like completely off route, wrong direction, and you're just like, oh man, we're going to drive an hour and a half to get to a hotel at 11 to put cards on so they'll run till 1, go to sleep, get up at 6. So you sleep at 1, whatever, or sleep at 1:30, and then you're getting up at 6, or you're getting up at 5 to drive back like 3 hours just to
get that morning light,
to get back to them, like, and there was a lot of that, which I think like, like that's the other thing I kind of love about making these films is like the crew's on the adventure too. And they have their own like wacky adventure. That's just like a little side mission of just trying to get food or trying to get a hotel or like trying to figure out where you can replace like something you've broken,
I fucking love it, man. I love
it's so sick. It is sick.
Love documenting. It is an endurance sport that unless you do it, you don't. And I'm not doing the film, but just following a race, trying to keep up with it, trying to keep a storyline, trying to get the shot, and trying to maintain your equipment and eat and sleep and everything. It is an endurance sport unto itself, and I
love it.
I love it.
I do too.
Stuff.
I think like like. I'm like, it's exhausting for sure. And I'm always like, I'll do one. At the end of the divide, I was like, that's it for me. I'm done with documenting these things. But like, that's definitely not true. And just from a human, like my personal experience, like I just love being in it, like even like irrespective of the film, I love making films and like, that's all I want to do all day, every day. But like the experience of just, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but like, and maybe it's the same for people who do these things as well, but like, it feels like what you're doing is important, and it is important to you. Like, and it's one of the only times I feel like in my life, at least, where you're like out there and you're doing something and you have just such conviction and such purpose that you're like, oh, this is important to me, and I want to do a good job. And I'm so focused on it and everything else goes away. And you're just like, this is like what I'm meant to be doing right now. And that's like the only projects that I get that on are these ultras, because you're sort of doing it with them, and like you're figuring out all this other stuff. And yeah, it's just kind of this different filmmaking experience that I don't know that I'll ever get over, just because of what it provides me, like as a person, just the experience itself, like irrespective of how the film comes out, I'm like, that was sick.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you get lucky and the film turns out well,
yeah, I love it. Yeah. And yeah, that's something we can both relate to on. You've mentioned this, you referred to it a couple of times, and it's something that really stood out to me in the film was one, those wide shots that show Lachlan just slowly going through the screen. And I thought, man, that I remember when I was watching, I'm like, yes, that is how you film this in a way that shows the aloneness, the remoteness of it, the isolation of it, the length of it. I just thought that was brilliant. And then you juxtaposition that with his cell phone video, which I thought was brilliant as well. And so one, it's just a pure kudos and congratulations. I thought it was just well filmed. But I'm curious, was it always your intention to use his cell phone videos?
Yeah, because he does such a good job of those. And when we did the Colorado Trail in 2022, we had no contact with him. It was like he wouldn't even look at us, like, because he was very strict, like no contact. But he was using his. I was like, well, can you at least use your phone or update? And he's good at that because he does gram stuff, and so he actually did such a good job of it on the Colorado Trail. I was like, man, even when I talked to him if I was to talk to him on the side of the road, he wouldn't give me the kind of response that I get from him talking in the phone, So there was like an honesty and that it provides. And then I think, so the intention was to always use the cell phone footage, and I just like, I like the way, because my style is very slow, and I showing these big landscapes, and the only way I feel like you can demonstrate what it feels like to ride 12 and a half days is to show someone just how long it takes to ride for 30 seconds, and that's like, those shots aren't even, maybe the longest ones are 30 seconds long or whatever, like, but like, you just see like, oh, it's taking him forever. Like, and then you compound that for 12 and a half days. Like then you start to get a sense of the scope. Whereas I think when you edit away from, if you change to another angle or whatever, there's just a sense of kind of compression. And then I just like how those big slow ones contrast to like the ratty cell phone nature. I was like, and it's like Lockie's all gross looking and he's just saying something completely rogue, and it plays so, I guess it's sort of like it demonstrates, and this is the thing I think, I've always sort of been drawn towards, is like the chaos and the kind of intensity that's within you as a person completing this mission, and then the serenity and the stillness and the kind of inconsequential nature of your being in a place as you're doing it, and it's like him just slowly moving across the landscape. Like, the landscape doesn't give a fuck if he's there. It's just going on. And then you go into this cell phone footage and he's just like, whatever, like, like fully in it, just absorbed by this mission. And so I just like the play of that, because it kind of, to me, symbolizes the experience of it.
Yeah. I think having those two elements is just fucking brilliant. I ate it up. I think it was, in my opinion, it has been my most favorite film to watch about the divide, to tell the story of it, the way it was filmed. And especially those elements, having the juxtaposition of those two, I thought it was brilliant. So well done.
And I think,
go ahead, please.
I think Lockie as a character, does a lot for that. I think, like, he has this, I mean, he's just one of those people that has this very, uncanny ability to sort of transfer his genuineness. Like he's, the conversations that's going behind the scenes about what he's doing and where he's going. Like he never does anything that he doesn't genuinely want to do and that he doesn't genuinely have like a curiosity about. Like him pitching, like, I want to do the divide, but I want to sleep more and I don't want to go for the record, to a team that is all about racing. Trying to like sell that to them is such a big feat, because everyone behind the scenes is like, well, who gives a shit if he's not going to go for the record? And then you're like, yeah, but people will. And then you watch him do it and everyone cares. And you're all just like, yeah. And like, and he didn't, and like he wasn't going for the record, and like he was sleeping all this, So there is something about him as a character too, where I think he transfers that genuineness of like, he's genuinely like excited and curious, and he's just doing it for him. I didn't even know. I interviewed him like 3 times post race, and he still kind of has no idea why he's doing it. Like, or why he did it, or like what he took away from it. Like there's just like this deeply kind of subconscious thing within him that just drives him to do these things sometimes. And I think that he conveys that to an audience in a way that you latch onto it, and I think that makes my job a lot easier as the filmmaker, because like it's just easy to communicate the emotion because he just sort of somehow does that.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's entertaining in himself, but not just entertaining. Like he's a real authentic, genuine person, and it comes through in the film, and you can't replicate that. You can't script it, and so having him as your main subject, makes your job a little bit easier.
Yeah. And I think like, like it's like he's riding for this big bad world tour team, and he's, raced on the road and all of this sort of stuff. But like, he's at his core, he's just like such a dirtbag bike rider, like that, knowing him and having known him in my life, like it's still very funny to me that like he is on that team and he is doing like, and he does have this sort of platform that he does because because he is just so genuine, and like it's almost like he's sort of surreptitiously like, built this career for himself and then pivoted in this way where he's like, psych, like now that I have this, now that I've kind of achieved these things and I'm a member of this team, I'm actually going to go and like do the thing I really want to do and sort of like show the world that. And it's almost like undermining the team, which I love.
I love it too. As a fan of the sport, when Lachlan came over and dipped his toes on our side of the pond, I ate it up. I'm like, yes, Payson McKelvin's another one who's kind of more on like the pro mountain bike circuit, gravel and stuff. And, he's dipped his toe in bike pack racing. I'd love to see people breaking the mold, and to your point at the very beginning of this conversation is, the different modalities in the way of doing cycling. And we don't need to have so much rigidity whenever it comes to it. And he is the perfect showcase. I mean, all the way from his alt tour to some of his forays into the Colorado Trail Race and now the Tour Divide. It is a perfect example of what I like to promulgate on this show is do it any way you like, ride any bike, ride it any way you want to, go fast, go slow, go far. It doesn't matter. And he is a person who's embodying that and is a very visible example of that. And so I'm a big fan. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, same here. And it's funny to say that because like he's my brother, obviously, but I'm like, I am a fan as well. Like I watch you, like I respect that, man. Good on you.
Yeah,
like,
he's a good dude.
I see how hard you work for this shit. Like, yeah, nothing but respect. So it's cool.
So, what are your hopes as far as an audience is concerned? What do you hope that people will take away from this film?
I mean, first and foremost, like for me, I want them to be entertained. And I want them to feel moved in some way by the story, just like, ultimately entertained. Like, I'm a filmmaker. I love this. And I really love, the craft of making films and how you can give people an experience. And so I think like, first and foremost, it's like I want them to be entertained by this thing and be able to watch it the whole way through and be like, wow, that was like, I loved that. I felt all of these different emotions and had this experience. And then I think, coming after that, because if they're not entertained, then there's no point in trying to do anything, because they're not going to watch it. They're going to be like, whatever. Maybe one or two people watching like, oh, wow, there was a really powerful message in that. If you could just get past the boring ass like nature of the thing. So like, that's the first and foremost is nowadays is to really make it entertaining. And then ideally, I think I just would like people to, or I would hope that people watch this and they're in some way moved to do something that they're outside of their comfort zone a little bit, because, and that's just a selfless thing, because I've had that experience. I've done things like this, certainly not as extreme, but that have given me really powerful, personal sort of experiences that I feel have made my life better. And so like hopefully people will see this and they'll be entertained by it, but they'll also be kind of a little bit awestruck by it in a way that gets them to just to do something,
do something.
Yeah, do something. Like it doesn't have to be sick.
Something.
Like nowadays, like I'll see something like this, someone do something like this, or a friend will do something, and dude, I'll get out and I'll do like a lap of Griffith Park, and like and I'll like go hard and I love it. And like, like my sort of adventuring or adventurous side is like somewhat curtailed nowadays, but like I still get moved by these things and I feel good about going out and doing like just a little bit. And that's, so I it would be nice to have that occur, that's sort of really like, at the end of the day, if it's entertaining and people like the story, they'll come back for more and they'll want to see more and they'll want to know more. And eventually that will translate to them participating, because curiosity will get the better of them eventually.
What's the response been like so far? I mean, I've seen the YouTube stats, and what feedback are you getting from people who've watched it? How are you feeling stoked on the response? Like, what's it been like?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. Like, pretty overwhelming actually. We did a film tour and we did a film tour and we sold out every spot really quickly. And I think the pinnacle of that was being at Boulder Theatre. Boulder's the Morton family's adopted hometown. My parents have lived there for 15 years or so. And Lockie and I have spent a lot of time over the last 20 years there and lived there ourselves. And the Boulder Theatre is like down the street from my parents' house. It's like, it feels like the hometown, and to have like 900 people show up to watch the film there was crazy, that was a very funny experience and a very cool to see Lockie move that many people. And then the response to the film has been good. I like that people, because there's a lot of films about this sort of thing. And when you're in the community, I often think about how I would respond, and there's a lot of stuff that I watch that I really, really love. But I just watch it and I love it, and that's it. Like I don't like. I might be moved by it, and I might be moved to go and be active or to think about something in a different way. But I sort of won't necessarily be like out there being like, oh my God, did you see this thing? Because there's a lot of amazing stuff out there. So I think that was quite moving that Lockie's a certain type of character and that we were able to make this film in this way about his mission or about his effort that kind of captivated an audience and elevated the story and the route, like, to a larger audience. And so I think that's always like, that's all you can ask for. That's really humbling. And particularly too, because, you put a lot of effort into these things, and everyone does, like Lockie does, like the team at EF, to be able to fight, to be able to find the funding to make a film like this, and then all of the crew that work on it, like Nate and Johannes and Ryan, like who go deep every day out there in the field, and then to come into post-production and have like Dave and Ben Cranell and like all these people like who straight up like they're just like, I want to work on this, like whatever you need, I'm going to go the extra mile, and you're getting them to do it, and you don't have a lot of money, so you're having to like get discounted rates, and you're having to ask for favors and everything, so it's really nice for all of that like crazy amount of effort that people put in to have people enjoy it and have it resonate with people. It makes it worthwhile, because you're like, okay, we like really went deep on this one, and and it's resonating with people. So that's nice to know that it like had some sort of an impact, and maybe it elevated what was already an amazing sporting feat. And I think an interesting sporting, like going back to that conversation about creativity, sort of it elevated that initial, like him doing it initially got a lot of steam and got a lot of people like talking about it and whatever. And then the ability to be able to elevate that through the film, I think was, it's nice to see that happened.
Yeah. I fucking love it, man. It definitely it resonated with me to a high degree, to the extent that it made me. I reached out to you immediately. I was like, I would love to talk about this film, because I think that this is an important film. I think that this film, like I said in the beginning, has the ability to reach a really wide audience and get people to do something. To your point, it doesn't have to be go ride the divide, but do something, get inspired, be inspired to do something crazy or fun or exciting or adventurous. And that's what it gets me excited. I love these people that do this. I love these stories, and I love this community. And I thought your film just did a fantastic job of capturing this sport in a really authentic way. And I loved it. I'm a fan.
Appreciate that.
I think we should tell people where can people find it? Where's the best way to watch The Divide?
Yeah, you can watch it for free on the EF Pro Cycling YouTube, which I guess just Google that. Google The Divide. Google The Divide, like Lachlan Morton. And you can find it there. And then that's the main spot for now. We may do some more future screenings, but I'm not sure if that'll happen. But yeah, appreciate that. And I think like, for me, I really approached this film. I was like, I don't know if I want to keep, I don't know if I have many more of these in me. There's other things that I want to do in my career. And I feel like I was sort of like, I've said everything that I want to say from a filmmaking point of view, except this, to be able to document this and to be able to let like an effort like this just stand for the effort. And it's really humbling to hear, because this is a sport that has given me so much. It's really shaped me in a major way, and it continues to give me a lot. That's riding my bike. And it's nice to be able to, in some very small way, contribute to like someone else's experience. And if that contributes to one other person that is able to find as much fulfillment within the sport of cycling as I have had, then that would be amazing. And so it's nice, like it's humbling, and it's nice to know that has happened, with this film. Yeah, it's like, it's cool. It's cool to know that that's like possible to do.
Yeah.
I guess.
No, that's a cool. Yeah, I resonate with that. It's really neat when you can give back to a community that's given so much to you in a really positive way, And
like, I guess too, because like you see, I have so many sporting heroes in this sport, and I just fucking love them. And I'm like, I love what you've done, and like you never really think of yourself as being able to contribute. I never have. And even though you see these efforts and these people like Lockie and Sofian and like all these Lael and all these people that are really pushing the boundaries and like and I see them as being big contributors, and then it's funny to think like, oh, just by like sharing that story, like you contribute too. And I think that I've sort of had that realization with this film when people are like, oh, but I really liked the film. And you're like, oh, cool. I was able to like contribute in a way that I never really thought I could. And that's nice,
Hell yeah. Well, I appreciate it, dude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the film. Like, honestly, I know how much work goes on. Actually, I don't know. I have a small glimpse into, I love this shit too, but it's a lot of work,
It is.
And
it
takes,
yeah.
And one thing I've learned is it takes people that are willing to do that to tell these stories. And without that, we wouldn't have these stories. And so I appreciate it. Big fan. And I really appreciate you sharing your time and your thoughts with the audience today. I'll make it easy for people to find that. Oh yeah. Easy. We should, maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, exactly.
Fire up your old podcasting skills. You've been out of practice for a while.
Oh, dude, I've been majorly out of practice.
Nailing it.
That's when I was like running late, getting on here this morning. I was like, oh, I have all this gear, but like, where is it? And then I was like trying to boot the Zoom up, and I'm like, oh god, yeah, I'm rusty.
You were only 2 minutes late. You were.
Yeah.
We won't even count that as being late.
But no, man, really appreciate it. It's been an honor to come on. Like, your show is a like I said before, like a kind of landmark in this community, and you are a leader in this community, and I really appreciate and respect the work that you've done. And it's cool to get on here and like put a face to the name and shoot the shit.
Likewise, man. I've been enjoying. I appreciate everything you do. I guess we both feel a little lucky to just be a part of the community and be able to contribute, man. I fucking love this shit too. So let's keep turning those wheels. It's cool. Yeah. You too, man. All right, buddy. Well, have a good day. We'll chat again soon, I hope. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much. And let me know. I don't know if you need anything, whatever. Oh, I need something. Yeah. I definitely need something. All right, man. Well, have a good day. Yeah. Peace out. Man. See ya. All right. That is it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. And thanks again to Angus Morton for coming on and giving us a behind the scenes peek into the filming of The Divide. If you haven't watched this incredible film yet, you can find a link in the show notes. You can also find it over at bikesordeath.com. All right. And next week, I've got another exciting episode just for you. Jambi is, in my opinion, an icon of the bikepacking space. She is a social media influencer and someone who I've really wanted to have on the show for a while. So I'm very excited to bring you that chat next week. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider supporting this podcast. A great way to do that is by supporting our sponsors or supporting us directly through patreon.com or by using our affiliate links, all of which can be found in the show notes. All of which can be found in the show notes. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. It has been a pleasure. Until next week, you know what to do. Go ride your damn bike. It was the middle of the night. You grabbed your knife and you held it tight. The sounds of beasts kept you awake. The sounds they made kept you afraid. In the morning, you packed your bike. Memories forgotten from the previous night. You rode faster than ever before. Was it your imagination or merely folklore? Fear turned into strength as you pushed further. Every pedal stroke, stronger and firmer. Your bike feels weightless, your legs aren't tired. You think to yourself, just a few more miles. Bikes. Oh,
Podcast.